What's up everyone? Welcome back to another wod-science video. Why kids should do resistance training. How many times have you heard the statement that strength training is unsafe for growing children? It will stunt growth or it will only injure them. In this video, I will debunk the widespread myths about strength training in kids. With insights from pediatric sciences, I will explore how resistance training can actually be a very powerful tool for enhancing your child's physical health, strength, and even aerobic performance. Alright, let's dive into the science. Asking whether resistance training is dangerous for youth and adolescents is actually asking the wrong question. We should rather focus on the following questions. First, is the risk of injuries higher for children and adolescents during resistance training compared to those who don't do so? Is a kid more likely to get injured during strength training than during other sports, for example, other physical activities? And thirdly, are kids more likely to get injured during strength training than adults? To sum it up, literature shows that the answer to all those questions is actually no. Of course, always provide that resistance training is executed under proper supervision and to the right extent. But let's have a deeper look into this. Over the last decades, the everyday lives of children have changed drastically in terms of daily activity or daily physical activity due to the temptations of video games and social media. In fact, kids have never been as weak as they are today. A report from 2020 revealed that around 80% of adolescents worldwide are not active enough. Therefore, many kids these days lack basic muscle strength, joint stability, and balance, which increases their risk of getting injured just during daily tasks like riding the bike, carrying heavy things, playing physical games, or just walking through the forest. In fact, the demand on kids doing competitive sport only has grown over the last decades. Therefore, obviously, the risk of getting injured has risen as well. The body has to get better prepared for the loads it has to carry. Therefore, youth and adolescents doing traditional sports like football, basketball, swimming profit from well-executed resistance training. For instance, this overview study found that when youth females did neuromuscular strength exercises, the risk of ACL injury was lower than control groups who did not do specific strengthening exercises. Therefore, the first question is answered. Resistance training can be a preventive tool to reduce the risk of injuries during sport in youth and adolescents. To directly proceed with the second question, is it more likely to get injured during strength training than during, for example, other sports or other physical activities? The risk of an injury related to resistance training in a youth athlete is actually very low when compared to other sports. Look at some data. Several studies have shown injury rates to be between 0.029 and 0.055 per 100 participant hours, which is considered very low. Rugby, for example, has shown an injury rate of 0.8 per 100 participant hours, which obviously is much higher than the risks found in strength training. Why is this? During strength training, muscles are not getting bulky or anything like that. That could obviously potentially harm the development of bones and growth, but this is not really happening. In fact, when pre-adolescents start resistance exercise, the strength gains are actually attributed primarily to neurologic mechanisms, whereby strength training increases the number of motor neurons that are recruited to fire with each muscle contraction. Thereby, the muscles not just gain strength, they also increase their skill level. It is the same principle when someone who is super new to strength training all of a sudden starts lifting weights. In the first couple of weeks, there is no pure muscle growth, even though he or she is actually progressing very well. Neurological adaptations happen before growth. Indeed, muscle hypertrophy, which means muscle growth, only really begins after puberty has started and enough of the required androgen hormones are around. Interestingly, another preventive effect shows up by starting resistance training as a child. Not only the muscles but also the connective tissue benefits from getting gradually evolved and strengthened. Furthermore, increased flexibility and obviously mobility prevents bad posture and back pain in early stages coming along with our sedentary lifestyle and prolonged sitting habits. Hence, proper resistance training has not just a lower injury risk than other sports, it has furthermore the ability to prevent injuries overall. So, what we discussed until now, we can actually quickly conclude the answer of the last question. Yes, resistance training can have bad effect if it is done in the wrong way. This is key. Many of the myths around strengthening training were born because kids were lifting too heavy weights in the wrong way. The incorrect execution puts an overload of stress on certain joints and ligaments, which can lead to inflammations or even ruptures. Proper instructions on the execution of resistance exercise is therefore absolutely key. Lifting for kids is actually the same thing as lifting for adults. Highly beneficial when done well, but obviously harmful when done not so well. This brings us to a super important last point. Several studies have shown that when exercise and sports are done regularly when you are young, it helps you to continue exercising when you are an adult. This concept is called adherence to exercise. So to say, if you have done exercise regularly during your childhood, you are much more likely to do so when you are an adult. Obviously, during adulthood, exercising regularly is absolutely necessary for our physical health and the health of the brain, which, as we know, naturally decline as we age. Furthermore, it is important to reduce the risk of cardiovascular events and the appearance of diseases like the diabetes. Unfortunately, when kids have poor muscle strength, for instance, because they never lifted any weights when they were young or did any sport, they are less likely to participate in exercise and sports later in life. That's at least what epidemiological data says. Participating in strength building activities when you are young increases your future strength, and the earlier you start, the better. Children who exercise early in their life has also better muscle strength later in life than, for example, inactive children or those who did not participate in any traditional sports. But don't worry, it is actually never too late to start with resistance training to have these beneficial effects on your health. Cool, that was it for today's video. Take home messages. Strength training in kids is absolutely beneficial for their overall health. It does not stunt growth or make their muscles too bulky. On the contrary, strength training early in life reduces the chances of getting injured in other sports. Finally, although the earlier the better, it is never ever too late to start lifting weights to improve your overall health and longevity. Hope you liked this content. Comment below if you had any sport-related injuries in your childhood, and let us know if your coach did implement strengthening exercises to prevent these injuries. Stay fit, stay healthy, see you in the next one. Ciao!